because you've spent enough of your life people-pleasing. You've spent enough of your life people-pleasing your way into burnout. Here's the truth. Freedom will make you unrecognizable to people who only ever loved your performance. You're not wrong for evolving. You're not selfish for choosing peace. You're going to be misunderstood. You'll be misread. You'll be misquoted. You'll be mischaracterized. It's not just about becoming your best self. It's about becoming your real self. All right, 10 episodes. 10 chances to speak life, to tell the truth, to say the things that most people honestly avoid. And I knew for this one, I had to go even deeper because here's what nobody tells you about growth. It's not just about becoming your best self. It's about becoming your real self. That's the most important part. And when you do that, when you really work hard at creating that version of you, you're going to be misunderstood. You'll be misread. You'll be misquoted. You'll be mischaracterized. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because you stopped being who others needed you to be and started becoming the real you. Growth will ask you to let go of being needed to be liked, of needing to be explained, of needing to be invited back to rooms that you've already outgrown. And the real question becomes, how long are you willing to be misunderstood in order to be free? Because at some point, you're going to have to choose. Do I want to be accepted by them, or do I want to be aligned with me? And today, we're going to go all the way there. Welcome to the Upgrade with Elle. I think one of the hardest parts about growth is realizing that you're going to be the first one in the room to just get it. You're the first one to notice the dynamic isn't healthy, the first one to stop performing, the first one to say, I don't want to live like this anymore. I'm just tired of this. And the second that realization hits you, everything around you is going to start to shift. You start seeing what you used to normalize. You hear what people aren't really saying. You're reading between the lines. You're noticing behaviors, patterns. You feel every inch of misalignment, even that you used to tolerate just to keep the peace. And then suddenly you're carrying a kind of clarity that no one else seems to have words for. And that can feel really heavy because now it's not just about changing, it's about being the one who sees the pattern before anyone else is ready to name it. That's why being misunderstood can feel like grief. Because deep down, you're hoping that someone else would see it with you, that someone else would validate what you now know is true. But you're ahead now. And that doesn't make you better, but it does make you different. And in some rooms, different can just feel like a threat. You're not trying to make it that way. It just is what it is. So let me just say this clearly. You're not wrong for evolving. You're not selfish for choosing peace. You're not dramatic for needing more than the bare minimum. And honestly, they're not wrong for staying where they are. That's all they know. But you're not wrong for outgrowing it. And once you realize that you've accepted something that you've outgrown, there's something else that you start to see. You were never meant to be understood by everyone. That realization, it really hits hard because there's still a part of you, maybe that little girl inside of you, maybe that high achiever that's in you that just wants to explain yourself just one more time, one more heart to heart, one more, if I could just help them see where I'm coming from. You desperately want that opportunity, but some people can only understand the version of you that made them comfortable. And the moment that you stop performing, the moment you stop being that person, the connection starts to get blurry. The support might even start to get kind of quiet. The whole vibe starts to change. And that's when you really have to ask yourself, are you trying to be free or are you trying to be familiar? Some people were only ever meant to understand the version of you that kept the peace, the version of you that laughed things off like they didn't really matter, like it didn't really bother you, the version of you that didn't ask for too much, the one that dimmed a little to make the room more comfortable. And when you stop being that version, relationships can start to shift. And not because there's beef, not because there's any big drama, but because that unspoken agreement where you were saying, I'll stay small if you stay close, it's no longer being honored. That agreement is gone. And that's where the grief starts to settle in. That's where the loneliness starts to creep in, because there's a quiet hope inside of you that says, if they really knew me, if they really loved me, wouldn't they still be here? But here's what I had to learn. Some people don't leave because they don't love you. They leave because they don't recognize you anymore. And that's hard for them to cope with. And maybe that's the point, right? Maybe you're becoming someone new, someone braver, someone softer in some ways, sharper in other ways, someone who's no longer driven by guilt or fear or validation. That's an unfamiliar version of you to other people. And honestly, they're not supposed to get it. They were never meant to walk with you in this season. This version of you, it's new, and it's not meant for them to be side by side with you. That doesn't make them bad. That doesn't make you bitter. It just means that it's time to bless the role they played and continue to become who you're supposed to be. Because staying in rooms that you've outgrown just to be understood, that will keep you performing versions of yourself that no longer exist. And you don't want that for yourself. I don't want that for you. And once you stop trying to be understood, once you finally release the need to explain yourself to people who were only meant to know older versions of you, that's when you start to feel it, the cost of alignment. Because nobody really talks about what it really costs to choose peace, to walk in clarity, to live in alignment with who you are now instead of who they expect you to be. Alignment sounds cute on Instagram, doesn't it? Or on social media. But in real life, alignment is quiet. It's lonely. It's internal. And it's full of hard choices and closed doors that you prayed would stay open. Because when you start honoring your truth, you're going to lose people. You're going to outgrow opportunities. You're going to outgrow rooms that used to feel comfortable. You're going to disappoint folks who were benefiting from your confusion and your confusion of who you were. And the hardest parts is you could still love them. You could still love those environments. You could still long for them. You can still care, but you care about yourself more now. And that shift, that's everything. That's what you really want, because you've spent enough of your life people pleasing. You've spent enough of your life people pleasing your way into burnout. Shrinking your opinions to keep the peace, bending yourself in, contorting yourself in ways just to continue to fit in someone else's narrative, continue to fit in rooms you knew you'd outgrown. And now you're realizing that peace has a price, and pretending is more expensive than losing the room. Here's the truth. Freedom will make you unrecognizable to people who only ever loved your performance. But that's not your problem to solve. That's not your weight to carry. Because when you start choosing alignment, you stop negotiating with people who only ever loved you small. So yes, alignment is going to come with loss. Yes, it's going to cost comfort, connection, control. It's going to cost you a lot. But what if being misunderstood isn't a setback? What if it's a sign that you're finally living in truth? Because truly it is. Maybe the silence is a sign. Maybe the tension in certain rooms is really just confirmation. Because when you stop needing to be understood, you start learning how to be free. It's a blessing. You're free from explaining, free from apologizing and over apologizing, free from dragging people into versions of your story that they were never meant to walk into. We don't own people. We don't own these relationships. You have to let these things be fluid. Some people were never meant to clap for you in this chapter, and that's okay. They've served their purpose. They've had their time. They supported older versions of you, and now it's your job to support this version of you, the one who's soft and grounded, the one who's direct and discerning, the one who no longer over-explains her evolution just to stay digestible. Let me just say this. Stop grieving the people who were only ever meant to understand your survival and not your freedom. You don't owe anyone your confusion just so they can feel connected to you. You don't have to shrink just to keep people close. Because here's the truth, freedom isn't always loud. Sometimes it can sound like no longer arguing your worth, no longer chasing clarity, no longer needing to have the last word or one last conversation that only ever drained you, no longer performing to be palatable. The right people won't need translation on who you're becoming. They'll feel your shift, even if they can't fully name it. And when you finally accept that and you stop trying to be understood, you start being whole. And that's the goal. If this episode spoke to you, if you've been carrying the weight of being misunderstood or having to choose between familiarity and freedom, I want you to know this: you're not alone. You're not crazy for evolving. You're not wrong for choosing peace. You're not selfish for deciding to protect the most honest version of you. There's a certain kind of strength that comes with saying, I'm okay if you don't get it. I'm okay if you don't get me. I'm still going to choose me. If this episode reminded you of someone who is in the in-between, in this type of season, please send it to them. Let them know they're not walking it by themselves. That can mean a lot to someone who is navigating this difficult space. And if this resonated with you deeply, I'd love for you to leave a review. Share it on your story, tag me, or shoot me a message. Your words help this platform reach people who need it the most. And honestly, they are super encouraging to me. And as always, I want to leave you with two things. The biggest risk is not failing. It's staying the same. And you cannot change the past, but you can absolutely decide on the future. So upgrade accordingly.